The car parked in my driveway right now has 188,000 miles on it, and I paid $13,500 for it used. I'm a mechanic. I could buy almost anything I wanted to. This is the car I chose, and I'm far from the only wrench turner who made that call. So tap subscribe before I get rolling, because what I'm about to tell you is the stuff a salesman will never say to your face. All over the country, the people who actually fix cars for a living are quietly buying 3 specific used cars for their own families. The exact same 3 cars the dealership down the road can't move off its lot to save its life. The badge on each one is the only thing keeping its price low. And that right there is the whole scam in a single sentence. Now here's the part that should bother you. Every one of these 3 cars will outlast the German sedan parked right next to it, and every one costs thousands less. So if they're this good and this cheap, why can't dealers give them away? After 22 years under the hood, I can tell you the answer is dumber than you'd ever guess, and it's quietly costing normal buyers a fortune. We're counting down to number 1, and number 1 happens to be the car sitting in my driveway. So how does a car this reliable end up this cheap? Let me start you at number 3, because it's the easiest of the 3 to walk onto a lot and find tomorrow, and it shows you exactly how this whole perception game works. Picture a guy at my counter, 28 years old, sliding his phone across to show me a 2014 BMW 3 Series he's about to buy, 87,000 miles, and the dealer's asking $14,500 for it. I pulled the service history, looked at what was about to come due, and I owed him the truth. You're about to drop 14 grand on a car that's going to need $4,000 of work inside a year and a half. He asked the obvious question: what would you buy instead? So I opened AutoTrader right there on the counter and spun the screen around. A 2015 Buick Regal, 62,000 miles, $8,900. Same power, better reliability, $5,600, still sitting in his pocket. He drove it home that week. 14 months later, his entire repair bill is $47, an air filter and an oil change. Think about that for a second. The reason that Regal works has nothing to do with the badge on the hood. General Motors built the second generation Regal on the Y2 platform, which it co-developed with Opel over in Germany. The 2-liter Turbo 4 under the hood is the LTG, an engine that landed on Ward's 10 best list 3 years in a row, and the 6-speed automatic comes from Aisin, the same Japanese supplier that builds transmissions for Toyota. So you've got a German platform, a Japanese gearbox, and a price tag dragged straight into the basement. All because the word Buick scares off anybody under 50. That's the perception scam in action. The car is excellent, the name is unfashionable, and the buyer pays for the name instead of the engineering. You'd think someone would have caught on by now. Nobody has. Let me put real numbers on it. A 2015 Regal with under 80,000 miles runs somewhere between $8,500 and $11,000. A same year BMW 328i runs 14 to 18,000. If the Regal ever needs a timing chain, which is rare, it's about $1,100. The same job on the BMW starts at $2,800, and the Regal's turbo is sitting right where I can reach it, so I can swap it in roughly 3 hours. The BMW's turbo is buried under the manifold, which means $3,200 in labor before I've touched a single part. If you go looking for one, here's how I'd inspect it. Start with the PCV valve, because there was a revised part after 2014 that cured an oil consumption issue. So if it's already in there, you're golden. Then check the turbo inlet pipe for cracks. A cracked one is a $90 part and 20 minutes of work, but it also tells you the last owner wasn't paying attention. Last, poke around the touchscreen, since some of these infotainment units had a delamination problem. It won't strand you on the highway, but it's annoying and runs about $400 to fix. But the Regal isn't even the most overlooked car on this list. There's a detail about this next one that almost everybody misses, and it's the reason its resale price is honestly a little insulting. Number 2 has some of the lowest repair costs of any mid-sized sedan you can buy. Lower than a Camry, lower than an Accord, and it loses value like it picked up a bad reputation it never earned. Every time one rolls into my shop, a small part of me deflates because there's almost never anything wrong with it. Oil changes, brake pads, tires, and that's the entire list. Last month, a 2016 came in wearing 167,000 miles. The owner bought it new, drove it 8 years, and wanted to know what big bill was coming. I put it on the lift and crawled through all of it. Suspension, brakes, the full undercarriage, pulled the codes, checked the transmission fluid, found nothing. The factory spark plugs still had life in them. I told him to circle back in another 30,000 miles, and he stared at me like I was running a con. That's the Mazda 6, and the bill on these is the kind of number that makes accountants cry. Mazda kept the third generation 6 refreshingly simple. The Sky Active 2.5 liter 4 uses a maintenance-free chain built to last as long as the engine, so there's no cheap tensioner waiting to let go. The 6-speed automatic is Mazda's own, and it's been proven for a decade. No CVT to grenade, no dual clutch dice roll, just an honest torque converter automatic that shifts clean and refuses to crit. And here's the detail people miss. Mazda set the compression ratio at 13:1, higher than a lot of sports cars, which squeezes out better fuel economy without trading away durability. It works in the opposite direction of what you'd expect. And the payoff isn't just on paper. The Mazda 6 actually steers and corners like the engineers cared, which is rare in a sedan this practical. You get the reliability of an appliance with the road feel of something that costs a lot more, and that combination almost never shows up at this price. The pricing is where you'll get a little annoyed if you bought Japanese somewhere else. A 2017 Mazda 6 Touring with 70,000 miles sits around $12,000 to $14,000. A same year Camry SE with similar miles runs 17 to 19. That's a $5,000 gap for a car that in my shop costs less to keep alive. The priciest repair I've ever done on a Sky Active 6 was a water pump at 140,000 miles. $680 all in. The average surprise on a same age Accord runs me $1,100. When you test drive one, watch two things. Grab the infotainment knob on the center console first, because if it feels loose or sticky, the last owner was rough with the car, and that tells you how they treated everything else. Then take it on the highway and lift off the gas right around 45 miles an hour. If a faint shudder comes up through the floor, check the motor mounts. That's a known weak spot, about $350 to fix. So use it to knock the price down or just walk. And the 2014 and 2015 cars had a paint adhesion problem. So scan the edges of the hood and trunk for bubbling. Mazda quietly extended the warranty on that. So find out if it's already been handled. So who is it for? If you want a car that's actually fun to drive but still sensible, The 6 out-handles everything in its class. If you plan to run a car well past 200,000 miles on the lowest possible upkeep, this is the one. And if you're done paying a premium for the Toyota badge, here's your exit. Who should skip it? Anyone who needs cavernous backseat room, since the 6 is tighter than a Camry. Anyone who wants the newest driver assist tech, which only the 2018 and newer cars carry, and anyone chasing resale in 3 years because the market still hasn't woken up to this master. Run the math anyway. Buy it for 12 grand, drive it 150,000 miles, and spend maybe $2,500 on maintenance the whole way. Nothing in the mid-size class beats that on dollars per mile. If this kind of straight talk is saving you from a bad buy, hit subscribe before number 1, because the cars dealerships push hardest are usually the ones you should run from, and I break those down too. So now we are back to the car in my driveway. Everything I just told you about the Master, number 1, does it on a bigger scale with more room, more features, and a drivetrain pulled straight out of a Lexus. Number 1 is a full-size sedan that shares its bones with the Lexus ES, matches a Camry for reliability, out-features both, and sells for $5,000 less, all because the average buyer is 67 years old. A couple years ago, a woman came in, mid-40s, sharp, needing something dependable for a 60-mile commute. She'd been circling Camrys and Accords with a budget near $18,000. I asked if she'd ever looked at the Avalon. She actually laughed and said that's what her grandmother drives. So I walked her out back and pointed at my own car, that 2014 Avalon Limited with 188,000 miles. I'd bought it at 90,000 miles for $13,500, and at that point I'd put maybe $1,800 into a total, brake job and a set of tires included. She bought a 2015 XLE the next week, $14,200, 71,000 miles. She texted me last month, sitting at 142,000 miles, zero mechanical trouble, asking why on earth nobody talks about this car. Here's why she'll never have trouble. The 7th generation Avalon shares its platform, its 3.5-liter V6 and its 6-speed automatic with the Lexus ES 350. Same parts, same assembly line in Georgetown, Kentucky, same Toyota reliability. And the 2GR4FE V6 in it is arguably the toughest 6-cylinder Toyota has ever built. No direct injection carbon headaches, no timing belt to replace, no turbo to blow. It just runs. I've watched these engines clear 400,000 miles, and I don't mean a story I heard at a parts counter. I've personally worked on 3 of them past 350,000 miles, every one still on its original transmission. You'd think someone at Toyota would brag about that. They barely mention it. Now the numbers, because this is the ridiculous part. A 2016 Avalon XLE with 80,000 miles runs $14,000 to $16,000. A 2016 Lexus ES 350 with the exact same miles runs $21,000 to $24,000. That's a $7,000 to $8,000 gap for 2 cars that are mechanically the same machine. The Lexus gets a nicer badge and slightly better interior trim, and that's the whole story. Same engine, same transmission, same factory, 7 grand apart. You'd think someone would have said something. Nobody did. Stack it against the Camry and it gets sillier. A 2016 Camry XLE V6 with 80,000 miles runs 15,000 to 17,000, more than some Avalons for a smaller car with fewer features. Repair costs stay just as gentle. Brake pads for all 4 corners run $280. A transmission fluid change is $180. A water pump, on the rare day one dies past 200,000 miles, runs about 650. So inspect one like this. Check the VIN for the dashboard recall first, since some 2013 and 2014 cars had dashboards crack in hot climates, and Toyota extended the warranty to cover it. Look at the front tire wear next, because uneven wear means a neglected alignment, which is worth $100 of the asking price. Test the Entune system on the Limited and XLE trims, since the touchscreen can lag, so make sure every button answers. And the move most people never make: hunt for one that belonged to an older owner. I mean it. They garage these cars, they service them exactly on schedule, and they drive with a feather foot. A grandma-owned Avalon with 60,000 miles is basically a new car hiding behind a few birthdays. I've bought cars exactly like that and flipped them to family members who are still driving them years later without a single complaint. The previous owner did all the hard work of breaking it in gently, and you get to collect on it. Who should buy it? Highway commuters, because it was engineered to cruise at 80 all day. Anyone who wants Lexus reliability without the Lexus sticker. Anyone who needs space, since the back seat is huge. And anyone secure enough to ignore what their friends think about an old person car. Who should pass? If you're under 30 and your buddy's opinions sting, I understand. If you want sporty reflexes, this big sedan isn't it. And if you park in tight city spots, 192 inches of car is a real consideration. So measure first. My honest verdict? This is the best car you can buy for under $15,000. Full size, fully loaded, full Toyota reliability, priced like the public has no idea what it is, because they don't. If I had to pick one car to drive for the next decade at the lowest cost of ownership possible, I'd buy another Avalon and never look back. I've done the math on it more times than I can count, and the Avalon wins every time, which is exactly why one is already sitting in my driveway. So that's the three. The Buick Regal, German bones wearing an American price. The Mazda 6, depreciating like it's cursed, while running like it's blessed. And the Avalon, the quietest secret on the entire used car market. 3 cars, all under $15,000, every one built to outlast vehicles costing twice as much. If reliable sedans are your thing, I put together a separate video on the cars that have genuinely earned legend status in my shop. The ones that simply refuse to die, and it's waiting for you on the screen. So the next time a salesman tries to steer you toward a 3-year-old German lease return, you'll know exactly what he's hoping you don't. Subscribe if any of this kept you from overpaying, and I'll keep handing you the truth. The lot won't. The car in my driveway is still running. Tomorrow it'll take me to work, same as it has for the last 100,000 miles.